I'm Claire, and I need to tell you about the Sunday that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. It was one of those ordinary autumn afternoons in Portland, the kind where the air smells like rain and fallen leaves, where you can hear neighbors raking their yards, where everything feels safe and predictable. I had just finished hosting Sunday dinner for my son Ethan and his wife Sienna. We do this every week. It's become our tradition since Jackson died 5 years ago. Sienna helped me clear the table while Ethan loaded the dishwasher. She was talking about her new project at work, something about marketing campaigns and client presentations. I wasn't really listening. I was watching Ethan laugh at something she said, noticing how happy he looked. That made me happy too. After everything we'd been through, after losing Jackson so suddenly, seeing my son smile like that felt like a small miracle. They left around 7. Ethan kissed my cheek. Sienna hugged me tight and told me the pot roast was perfect. I stood on the porch and waved as their car pulled away, then went back inside to finish cleaning up. That's when I saw it, Sienna's phone, just sitting there on the kitchen counter next to the fruit bowl. I picked it up, planning to text Ethan so they could swing back and get it. The screen lit up in my hand. A notification appeared at the top. My heart stopped. The preview showed a photo. A man standing outside a house I didn't recognize. Gray hair, slight build. Wearing a blue jacket I remembered buying at Nordstrom 6 years ago. Jackson, my husband, my dead husband. My hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. This wasn't possible. Jackson died 5 years ago in a car accident in Henderson, Nevada. He was on a business trip. I got the call at 3 a.m. from the Nevada State Police. I flew out there. I identified his body at the morgue. I signed papers. I planned his funeral. I scattered his ashes at Crater Lake because that was his favorite place. But this photo, the man in this photo was Jackson. Older, yes. The gray in his hair more pronounced. But it was him. The way he stood with his weight slightly on his left leg because of that old knee injury. The scar above his right eyebrow from when he fell off his bike as a kid. The shape of his shoulders. I couldn't breathe. The kitchen felt too small, too hot. I sat down hard in one of the dining chairs, still gripping the phone. The message beneath the photo read, "Same time next week." That was all. No name, no context. Just those 4 words and that impossible photograph. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Then I tapped it again, making it light up. The photo was still there. Jackson was still there. Still alive in that image. Still real. My mind raced through explanations. A look-alike. Someone who resembled Jackson. But no, I knew my husband's face better than my own. I'd spent 32 years looking at that face, waking up next to it, watching it across the dinner table, seeing it light up when Ethan was born, watching the lines deepen around his eyes as we aged together. This was Jackson. I should have put the phone down. I should have called Ethan right then, but I didn't. Instead, I unlocked it. Sienna's passcode was easy. She'd told me once when she asked me to check a message while she was driving. Her birthday backwards. I typed it in with trembling fingers. The phone opened to her messages. The text with Jackson's photo was at the top of the list. No name, just a phone number I didn't recognize. I tapped on the conversation thread. There were dozens of messages. Months of them. I scrolled up, my stomach twisting tighter with each line I read. She asked about the insurance money again. Sienna, tell her you're handling it through the lawyer. Keep her calm. Unknown number. The house appraisal came back at $480K. When can we move forward? Sienna, not yet. Need to wait until she transfers it to Ethan. Then you'll have access. Unknown. Number. She's been acting strange lately, asking questions about your accident. Sienna. What kind of questions? Unknown number, just details. Where exactly it happened. Why you were on that particular road. Sienna, redirect her. Grief does that. She's remembering wrong. You're good at this. Unknown number. I felt bile rise in my throat. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. These messages, they were talking about me, about Jackson's death, about my house, about insurance money. I kept scrolling, going further back. 6 months, a year, 2 years. Ethan proposed. I said yes. Sienna, perfect. You're doing exactly what we need. Unknown number. I actually like him. Is that a problem? Sienna, as long as you remember the goal. We need access to everything Claire has. The house, the insurance payout, the inheritance from her parents. Ethan is the key. Unknown number, I know. I won't forget. Sienna, my vision blurred. Tears I didn't even realize I was crying dripped onto the phone screen. I wiped them away with shaking hands and kept reading. Further back, 3 years ago, before Sienna and Ethan even met. I found him, your son. His name is Ethan Holloway, works in software development. Single, still grieving his father. Sienna, good. That makes him vulnerable. Approach carefully. He can't suspect anything. Unknown number. I know how to do this. You taught me well, Grandpa. Sienna, Grandpa. The word hit me like a physical blow. I read it again, and again. Grandpa. Jackson was Sienna's grandfather. No, that wasn't possible. Jackson's parents died when he was young. He was an only child. He had no extended family. That's what he always told me. That's what I believed for 32 years. But here it was, in black and white, on my daughter-in-law's phone. My husband had a family I never knew about, and his granddaughter had seduced my son as part of some plan. I kept scrolling, desperate now. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, cold. I needed to know everything. 4 years ago, right after Jackson's death. The service went off without problems. She suspects nothing. Cried through the whole thing. Sienna, good. Stay close to the family, especially the son. We'll need him eventually. Unknown number. Why did you have to fake it this way? She's devastated. Sienna, it was the only way. Clean break, insurance payout, freedom to come back here full time. Your grandmother and I have sacrificed enough over the years. Unknown number, I guess. Still feels cruel. Sienna, life is cruel, sweetheart. We're just playing the hand we were dealt. Besides, Claire will be fine. She's tougher than she looks, and eventually, she'll have you to take care of her. Isn't that nice? Unknown number. I stopped reading. I set the phone down on the table very carefully, like it might explode if I moved too quickly. Jackson faked his death. My husband of 32 years faked his own death so he could escape our marriage and collect insurance money and go back to another family. A family I never knew existed. The room spun. I gripped the table edge so hard my knuckles went white. I thought about the last morning I saw Jackson alive. He was packing for his business trip to Nevada, some conference about supply chain management. He traveled for work regularly. I was used to it. I kissed him goodbye in the driveway. He said he'd call me when he landed. He told me he loved me. 3 days later, the police called. There had been an accident. A head-on collision on a rural highway outside Henderson. The other driver was drunk. Jackson died instantly. At least that's what they told me. I flew to Nevada in shock. Everything after that was a blur. Paperwork, morgue visits. The body was badly damaged from the accident, they said, but it was definitely him. Dental records confirmed it. They gave me his personal effects, his wedding ring, his watch, his wallet with our photo inside, except none of it was real. It was all staged, carefully planned, executed perfectly. While I was crying myself to sleep every night for months, Jackson was alive somewhere, with his other family, his real family, laughing about how well the plan had worked, and then he sent his granddaughter to marry my son, to get close to me, to monitor me, to eventually take everything I had left. I don't know how long I sat there at that table. It could have been minutes, could have been hours. The light outside changed. The house got darker. I didn't move. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Mom, Sienna left her phone there. We're already home. Can she pick it up tomorrow? I stared at the message. Tomorrow. Yes. Tomorrow Sienna would come back for her phone, and she would know I'd seen everything. I typed back, "Of course, sweetie. No problem." Then I opened my laptop. If Jackson was alive, there would be proof. There had to be. You can't just fake your death and disappear without leaving traces. I started with the photo. I saved it to my computer and checked the metadata, the information attached to the image file. Most people don't know phones automatically embed location data in photos. This one did. The photo was taken 3 weeks ago. The GPS coordinates placed it in Henderson, Nevada. Henderson, the same town where Jackson supposedly died. I pulled up Google Maps and entered the coordinates. The location showed a residential street, quiet neighborhood, well-maintained houses. I switched to Street View and slowly turned the camera angle until I found it. The house from the photo. Pale yellow with white trim. A neat front lawn. A mailbox shaped like a barn. I zoomed in on the mailbox. There was a name painted on the side in small letters. Rosalind Holloway. I sat back. Holloway. Jackson's last name. Our last name. I searched for Rosalind Holloway in Henderson, Nevada. Property records came up immediately. She'd owned that house for 43 years. Bought it in 1981 with her husband, Jackson Holloway. 43 years. That was before I even met Jackson. I kept digging. Marriage records. Rosalind Ann Morrison married Jackson Thomas Holloway in 1980 in Henderson, Nevada. Jackson and I got married in 1991. We met in 1990 at a conference in Seattle. He told me he'd never been married before. He told me he'd been too focused on his career to settle down until he met me. Another lie. I found more records. A birth certificate. Emma Claire Holloway, born 1982 in Henderson, Nevada. Parents, Jackson and Rosalind Holloway. Emma. Jackson had a daughter named Emma. I never knew she existed. I searched for Emma Holloway, found her marriage certificate from 2003. Emma Claire Holloway married David Chen. Found a birth certificate for their daughter. Sienna Rose Chen, born 2004. Sienna. My daughter-in-law. Jackson's granddaughter. I pieced it together slowly, like assembling a puzzle in the dark. Jackson married Rosalind in 1980. They had a daughter in 1982. But sometime after that, Jackson started living a double life. He would leave for weeks at a time for work. Except he wasn't just working. He was building another life in Portland. A life with me. We met in 1990, married in 1991, had Ethan in 1993. I thought we were a normal family. I thought Jackson's frequent business trips were just part of his job. I never suspected he was going home to another wife, another daughter. For 32 years, I was the other woman, and I didn't even know it. The weight of it crushed down on me. Every memory I had, every moment I thought was real, all of it was contaminated now. Poisoned. Our wedding day. Jackson was late to our own ceremony. He said he got stuck in traffic. Was he actually saying goodbye to Rosalind? Ethan's birth. Jackson almost missed it. Said his flight was delayed. Was he actually with his other family? Our anniversary trips? The times he seemed distant? The nights he came home late? The phone calls he took in another room? All of it made sense now in the worst possible way. And I had mourned him. God, I had mourned him so deeply. After the accident, I couldn't function for months. Ethan had to take care of me. I couldn't get out of bed. Couldn't eat. Couldn't imagine a future without Jackson. I went to grief counseling, joined a widow's support group. Slowly, painfully, rebuilt my life. Started finding small moments of peace. Started believing I could survive this loss. 3 years after Jackson's death, Ethan met Sienna at a coffee shop. She was new to Portland, he said. Just moved here for work. They started dating. She was perfect. Kind. Thoughtful. She remembered little details about people. She brought me flowers. She called me mom within 6 months. I loved her. I thought she was the daughter I never had. When Ethan proposed, I cried happy tears. When they got married, I gave a speech about how grateful I was that Ethan had found someone so special, someone to build a life with. I was grateful that Jackson's granddaughter had successfully infiltrated our family so she could rob us. The laptop screen blurred. I was crying again. Not the gentle tears from before. These were harsh, angry sobs that shook my whole body. How could he do this? How could Jackson look me in the eye every single day for 32 years and lie? How could he hold me when I cried about my parents' deaths and pretend to be my partner when he had a whole other life waiting for him? And Sienna. How could she smile at me and call me mom and sit at my table and eat my food while planning to destroy everything I had left? My phone rang. Ethan. I stared at it until it went to voicemail. He called again. I turned the phone off. I couldn't talk to him yet. I couldn't tell him that his father was alive, that his wife was a fraud, that his entire marriage was part of a con. Not yet. Not until I knew everything. I went back to Sienna's phone, scrolled through more messages, found contact information, email addresses, phone numbers. I found photos. Jackson at a backyard barbecue. Jackson sitting on a porch with Rosalind, both of them gray-haired and smiling. Jackson holding a baby. His great-grandchild, I assumed. From Emma's other children. A whole life. Complete and full. While I thought he was dead. In one photo, he was wearing the blue jacket from the recent picture. The one I'd bought him for his birthday 6 years ago. He'd taken it with him. Taken a piece of our life into his real life. I checked the date on that photo. 2 months ago. Jackson looked healthy, happy, relaxed, not dead, not gone, not mourned, just living his actual life without the burden of pretending to love me anymore. The cruelty of it took my breath away. I set Sienna's phone down and walked to the living room, sat on the couch in the dark. Outside, the streetlights came on. A car drove past. Someone laughed in the distance. Normal life continued all around me while mine shattered into pieces so small I didn't know if I could ever put them back together. But even through the pain and shock, something else was growing. Something cold and sharp. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind. The quiet, calculating kind. The kind that makes you see clearly instead of blinding you. They thought I would never find out. Jackson and Rosalind and Sienna. They thought their plan was perfect. They thought I was too trusting, too naive, too broken by grief to ever question anything. They were wrong. I stood up and went back to the kitchen, picked up Sienna's phone, opened the photo gallery and started going through every single image, taking pictures of the screen with my own phone. Evidence. I needed evidence of everything. Then I went through her messages again. All of them. Screenshotted every conversation with Jackson, every plan they'd made, every lie they'd told. It took hours. By the time I finished, it was after midnight. My eyes burned from crying and staring at screens. My hands ached. But I had everything. I plugged Sienna's phone back into the charger where she'd left it, put it back on the counter exactly where it had been. Wiped my fingerprints off the screen, even though that was probably paranoid. Then I went upstairs to my bedroom. The bedroom I'd shared with Jackson for 23 years before he died. Except he didn't die. He just left. I lay down on the bed, still fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, Sienna would come for her phone. She would smile and hug me and thank me for keeping it safe. And I would smile back. Because I needed time to figure out what to do next. I needed to understand the full scope of their plan before I revealed that I knew. I closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come. How could it? My mind kept replaying moments from my marriage, examining them under this new, horrible light. The time Jackson forgot our anniversary and felt so guilty he bought me an expensive necklace. Was that guilt about forgetting, or guilt about his double life? The time he came home after a 2-week trip and couldn't remember which restaurant was my favorite, because he was mixing up his 2 lives? The careful way he controlled our finances. Separate accounts. His money was his business, he always said. Was he hiding the money he sent to Rosalind? The way he never wanted me to meet his colleagues? The way he avoided social media? The way he insisted on handling all his own travel arrangements? Red flags I'd never seen because I trusted him completely. What a fool I'd been. But I wasn't a fool anymore. Somewhere around 3 a.m, I got up and went to the closet, pulled down the box from the top shelf. The box I'd put away after Jackson's funeral and never opened again because it hurt too much. Inside were his personal effects. The things the Nevada police had given me. His watch, his wedding ring, his wallet. I opened the wallet. Our photo was still inside. Jackson and me on vacation in Hawaii 5 years before he died. We looked happy. I remembered that trip. Remembered feeling grateful for our marriage. For our life together. Behind that photo was another one, tucked in the back slot where I'd never looked. I pulled it out. Jackson and Rosalind, much younger, maybe early 30s, standing in front of the yellow house, holding a baby between them, all three smiling, his real family, his first family, his only family. I was the illusion, the side story, the mistake he finally found a way to escape. I put everything back in the box, put the box back in the closet. Tomorrow I would pretend everything was normal. I would let Sienna collect her phone. I would play the role of the grieving widow who loved her daughter-in-law. But inside, I would be planning. Because Jackson and Rosalind and Sienna had made a crucial mistake. They thought I was weak, broken, easy to manipulate. They had no idea who they were really dealing with. I wasn't the same woman who'd identified her husband's body 5 years ago. Grief had changed me. It had made me harder, stronger, more capable of surviving than I ever knew I could be. And now I knew the truth. Now I could finally stop mourning a ghost and start fighting back. The sun started to rise. Light crept through the bedroom windows. Another day beginning. Another chance to decide who I wanted to be. The old Claire would have collapsed under this revelation. Would have confronted everyone immediately. Made a scene. Let emotion drive every decision. The new Claire was different. The new Claire knew how to be patient, how to watch and wait, how to gather information before making a move. They wanted to play a long game? Fine. I could play too. And I was going to win. Sienna came by the next morning at 10. I watched through the kitchen window as she walked up to the house. Yoga pants and oversized sweater, ponytail swinging. She looked so innocent. I opened the door before she could knock. "Mom, thank you so much for holding on to my phone." She hugged me. I forced myself not to stiffen. "Of course, honey." My voice sounded normal, steady. She grabbed her phone from the counter and checked the screen. Something flickered across her face. Concern, maybe. But then she smiled again. We made small talk for 15 minutes. Her projects, my book club, their California vacation plans. Every word out of her mouth was probably calculated, but I smiled back and played my role perfectly. When she left, I went upstairs, packed a small bag, and left Portland. I didn't tell Ethan. I turned off my phone, paid cash for gas. Henderson, Nevada was 12 hours away. I made it in 11. The sun was setting when I pulled onto Jackson Street. The yellow house looked exactly like the photos. Neat lawn, white trim, that barn-shaped mailbox. I parked across the street and waited. Lights came on inside. Through the windows, I could see movement. Jackson was in there, alive. I waited until the house was dark except for one upstairs window. Then I crossed the street and knocked. The porch light clicked on. Footsteps inside. The door opened. An elderly woman stood there, late 70s, gray hair, purple bathrobe. Sharp eyes that studied me for a long moment. "You must be Claire." Hearing my name from her mouth felt like a punch. "And you're Rosalind." She nodded. "I suppose you should come in." The house was full of family photos, Jackson at different ages, always smiling. A whole life documented in frames. A life I was never part of. Rosalind led me to the living room. We sat facing each other. "How did you find us?" "Sienna left her phone at my house. I saw the messages." I told Jackson that plan was too risky. Rosalind's voice was matter of fact, but he insisted Emma's girl could handle it. Why did he do it? Why fake his death? She stood up without answering. Left the room. I heard her climbing stairs, drawers opening. She came back carrying a cardboard box and set it on the coffee table. "Jackson kept records of everything. This is your answer." I opened the box. Bank statements from 1991, legal documents, letters. The first folder showed regular deposits from Jackson's job, but also large transfers. Money being moved, hidden, He was embezzling from his company, Rosalind said quietly. Started in the late 80s. By 1995, he'd stolen almost $2 million. I stared at her. What? He knew eventually they'd audit, so he built an exit strategy. She gestured to the box. The cancer plan came first. Fake a terminal illness, drain your accounts for treatment, disappear. But that felt too slow. I pulled out more documents. Life insurance policies, fake identification, medical records showing a cancer diagnosis that never happened. Then he found the Nevada loophole. Die in an out-of-state accident, proper documentation, insurance pays quickly, especially if the body is damaged enough that dental records are the main identification. My hands shook. But I saw his body. You saw a body, not his. The man who died in that crash was homeless, no family. Jackson paid a morgue attendant to switch the dental records. I felt sick. The room spun. The insurance paid $500,000. Jackson transferred your half into accounts he controlled before disappearing. You never knew because he made it look like legal fees and funeral costs. Why are you telling me this? She met my eyes. Because I'm tired. I've been his wife for 44 years. Known about you for 33. I've shared him. Waited for him to come home from Portland, pretended everything was fine when he called me by your name. Her voice cracked. I'm dying, Claire. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe. And I don't want to die protecting a man who only thought about himself, who used both of us. Tears streamed down my face. For myself. For Rosalind. For the decades we'd both wasted. Sienna has been documenting your behavior, Rosalind continued. Building a case that you're mentally unstable, for conservatorship. If she convinces Ethan you can't manage your affairs, he can petition the court. Then she'll have legal access to everything. I stood abruptly, gripping the couch. Why are you helping me? Because you didn't deserve this. You mourned him genuinely. That's more than I ever got. She walked to the window. He's upstairs, sleeping, but confronting him won't help. Men like Jackson don't feel remorse. I need proof. Can I take this box? She nodded. I made copies months ago. There's also a flash drive with recordings of Jackson talking about everything. I've been recording him for a year. I took the box, held it against my chest. Evidence. Truth. What will you do? Rosalind asked. I don't know yet, but I won't let him win. Good. She touched my arm as I left. Be careful. Jackson is dangerous when cornered. I walked to my car. Put the box in the trunk. My husband was inside that house 20 feet away. Alive. The man I'd grieved for 5 years. But Jackson didn't matter anymore. He was a coward who faked his death rather than face his mistakes. I had something better than his confession. I had proof. I drove away from Henderson as the sun rose. The grief that had weighed me down for 5 years was gone. Burned away by anger and purpose. I wasn't a widow anymore. I was a woman who knew the truth and had nothing left to lose. The drive back took 14 hours. I stopped only for gas. By the time I reached Portland, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I couldn't just show Ethan the evidence. He'd be devastated. But if I waited too long, Sienna might move forward with her plan. I needed to be strategic, gather more evidence, build an airtight case, protect Ethan. My phone buzzed. Messages from Ethan flooded in. Mom, where are you? Getting worried. Sienna said you seemed off yesterday. Of course she did. Already building her narrative. I texted back. Sorry, honey. Went to visit a friend in Seattle. Phone died. I'm home now. His response. Can I come by later? Come for dinner. I'll make your favorite. I spent the day copying everything from the box. Backed it up 3 times. Originals went into a safe deposit box. When Ethan arrived that evening, I cooked pot roast. We talked about work, about California, about his life. As he left, he paused. Mom, are you sure you're okay? Sienna mentioned you seemed distant yesterday. There it was. Seeds of doubt. I smiled. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just had a lot on my mind. After he left, I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront Sienna yet. I wasn't going to tell Ethan yet. I was going to let them think they were winning while I built my case stronger, because when I finally revealed everything, I wanted no doubt, no escape. The next morning, Sienna called. Hi, Mom. I was thinking maybe lunch this week. Just us two? I smiled even though she couldn't see me. That sounds lovely, honey. Thursday? Perfect. There's this new cafe downtown I've been wanting to try. After we hung up, I stared at my phone. Sienna wanted lunch to assess how much I knew, to document my behavior for her case against me. Fine. I'd give her exactly what she expected. I spent the next 2 days preparing. I went through the flash drive Rosalind had given me, listening to every recording. Jackson's voice made my skin crawl. In one conversation, he laughed about my grief, called me pathetic, said I was easier to fool than he'd expected. I listened to all of it. Let the anger sharpen my focus instead of breaking me. I also hired a private investigator, a woman named Maria Chen who specialized in fraud cases. I gave her copies of everything from Rosalind's box and asked her to dig deeper, find out if there was more I didn't know yet. This is extensive, Maria said, flipping through the documents in her office. Your husband was running a sophisticated operation. Can you find out what else he's hiding? She looked up at me. You're sure you want to know? Sometimes the truth gets worse before it gets better. I need to know everything, no matter how bad it is. Maria nodded. I'll start immediately. Give me a week. Thursday came. I met Sienna at the cafe she'd chosen. It was one of those trendy places with exposed brick and overpriced salads. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table. Mom! She stood and hugged me. I'm so glad we're doing this. We ordered lunch. She talked about work, about the vacation plans, about a new yoga studio she'd joined. Normal conversation. But I noticed the way her eyes tracked my reactions, the way she paused after certain statements, waiting to see how I'd respond. She was testing me, looking for cracks in my composure. How have you been feeling lately? She asked, her tone concerned. Ethan mentioned you seemed a bit off last week. There it was, the setup. I smiled and shook my head. Oh, just one of those weeks. Sometimes I get overwhelmed thinking about Jackson, even after all these years. Of course, grief doesn't follow a timeline. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That's completely normal. But if you ever feel like it's too much, you should talk to someone, a professional. Maybe you're right. She smiled, satisfied. She thought she was winning. We finished lunch. She hugged me goodbye and promised we'd do it again soon. As I walked to my car, I felt her eyes on my back, watching, evaluating, adding to her mental notes about my declining state. Let her think she was in control. Let her believe her plan was working perfectly. Because in 1 week, Maria would have her report, and I would know everything. Then the real game would begin. I drove home and found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single photograph, Jackson and Sienna, standing together outside a restaurant. Recent. His arm around her shoulders, both of them smiling. On the back, someone had written in careful handwriting, they met 3 times last month. He's coaching her on the conservatorship. R. Rosalind. Even dying, she was still helping me. I looked at that photo for a long time. My dead husband and my daughter-in-law, conspirators, planning my destruction over lunch. I put the photo with the rest of my evidence and made myself dinner. 1 week until Maria's report. 1 week until I'd know the full scope of what they'd done. I could wait 1 more week, because that's what they didn't understand about me. I wasn't weak. I wasn't broken. I was a mother protecting her son from predators. And there was nothing in this world more dangerous than that. Maria called exactly 1 week later. We need to meet, in person. What I found is too sensitive for the phone. Her office was downtown. When I arrived, a thick folder sat on her desk between us. Claire, Sienna has been draining your accounts for 8 months, small amounts through Ethan's beneficiary access. She's taken almost $30,000. My stomach dropped. Ethan doesn't know? The statements go to an email she set up. She's intercepting everything. Maria slid more documents across. There's something else. Jackson had another wife before Rosalind, Barbara Holloway. She drowned in 1978, 6 months after taking out a life insurance policy with Jackson as beneficiary. The room spun. You think he killed her? The police are reopening the investigation. Maria's voice was careful. Your husband isn't just a con man, Claire. I sat there, numb. Then I stood. I need to tell Ethan. Now. That evening, Ethan came over alone. I sat him down at the dining table where all the evidence was laid out. Your father is alive, I said quietly. His face went white. What? I showed him everything. The photo, the messages, the bank statements showing Sienna's theft, Maria's report about Jackson's embezzlement and Barbara's suspicious death. Sienna is his granddaughter. She married you to get access to everything I have. Ethan stood abruptly, knocking his chair back. My father is alive? I mourned him. His voice cracked. And Sienna knew? Yes. He paced, hands in his hair. My whole life is a lie. I know, honey. I'm so sorry. When he finally sat down again, his eyes were red but determined. What do? We stop them. But I need your help. We need Sienna on tape admitting everything. For 2 weeks, Ethan played his role perfectly. He acted concerned about me, supported Sienna's suggestions that I needed help, became the worried son she needed him to be. Meanwhile, I met with police, gave them everything. They were building cases for insurance fraud, theft, and reopening Barbara's investigation. We need the recording, Detective Morrison told me. Once we have Sienna admitting to the plan, we can move on both of them. The trap was set for a Tuesday afternoon. Ethan told Sienna he'd found suspicious activity in my accounts, that he was worried I was being scammed, that maybe they needed to take legal action to protect me. Sienna took the bait. Maybe it's time we talked about conservatorship, she said carefully. Ethan had his phone recording in his pocket. Your mom isn't capable of managing her finances anymore. We need to protect her. You really think that's necessary? I do. I've been documenting her behavior for months. We have enough for a petition. Sienna's voice was confident, clinical. Once we have legal control, we can fix the damage she's done. What kind of damage? There was a pause. Then Sienna said something that made my blood run cold when Ethan played me the recording later. The damage doesn't matter. What matters is getting access to the accounts before she figures out what's happening. Her voice was casual, matter of fact. Once the conservatorship goes through, we transfer everything out. Then I file for divorce, claim she manipulated me, and leave. Your grandfather has it all planned out. Ethan's voice on the recording was steady. My grandfather? My dad's dad died when he was young. Your dad isn't dead, Ethan. Sienna said it so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. He's been in Nevada this whole time. The accident was staged. The insurance money funded his new life. And you knew? Of course I knew. He's my grandfather. This whole thing was his plan. A pause. I'm sorry you're finding out this way, but it's better than you knowing before. You might have stopped me. The recording ended there. Ethan had walked out without another word. 2 days later, police arrested Sienna at her office. Federal agents simultaneously arrested Jackson in Henderson. Rosalind had agreed to testify against him in exchange for immunity. I wasn't there for the arrests. I'd done my part, given my statements, handed over my evidence. Now I let the system do its job. Ethan moved back into my house that week. He couldn't stay in the apartment he'd shared with Sienna. Every corner reminded him of the lie he'd been living. We didn't talk much at first. He was processing, grieving, not for his father, but for the life he thought he had. One evening, about a week after the arrests, he found me in the kitchen making dinner. Mom, I need to ask you something. I set down the knife I'd been using. Anything. How did you not fall apart? When you found out about Dad, about Sienna, all of it. How did you stay strong enough to fight back? I thought about that for a moment. I did fall apart, for about 12 hours. I cried and raged and felt sorry for myself. I met his eyes, but then I realized something. Falling apart was what they wanted. They wanted me weak and confused and easy to control, so I decided to be the opposite. I don't know if I can do that. You already are. You got that recording. You walked away from Sienna even though it destroyed you. You're stronger than you think. He nodded slowly. I loved her, Mom. I know. And none of it was real. No, but that doesn't mean what you felt wasn't real. Your love was real. She's the one who's fake. 3 months later, I stood in a courtroom and watched Jackson plead guilty to insurance fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. He got 15 years. Sienna took a plea deal, testified against him, and got 7 years for theft and fraud. The money she'd stolen was returned. Jackson's life insurance company sued for the full payout plus damages. Rosalind's house was seized. Everything he'd built in his fake life was dismantled piece by piece. I felt nothing watching him in that orange jumpsuit. No satisfaction, no anger. He was just a pathetic old man who'd spent his life running from consequences. The real victory came 6 months after that. Ethan and I were having breakfast on my back porch. He'd gotten his own apartment again, started dating someone new, a teacher named Morgan who made him laugh. He was healing. "I've been thinking about selling the house," I said suddenly. Ethan looked up from his coffee. "Yeah? Too many memories, too many ghosts. I think I need a fresh start." "Where would you go?" "I don't know yet. Maybe somewhere smaller, quieter. Somewhere I can just be Claire instead of Jackson's widow or Sienna's victim." He smiled. "I think that's a good idea." 2 months later, I closed on a small cottage in Ashland, Oregon, 3 hours from Portland. Close enough to visit Ethan, but far enough to feel like a completely new life. I sold most of my furniture, kept only what mattered. Photos of Ethan as a child, my mother's jewelry, books I loved. Everything else was just weight I didn't need anymore. The cottage had a garden. I'd never been much of a gardener, but I learned. Spent my mornings planting flowers and vegetables. Spent my afternoons reading on the porch. Joined a local book club. Made friends who knew me as just Claire, not as someone with a tragic story. A year after moving to Ashland, Ethan visited with Morgan. They were engaged. She was warm and genuine, and looked at my son like he was the most important person in the world. We sat in my garden that afternoon, the 3 of us, drinking lemonade and talking about their wedding plans. "Small ceremony," Ethan said. "Just close friends and family. Nothing extravagant." "That sounds perfect," I said. Morgan reached over and squeezed my hand. "We'd love for you to be part of the planning, if you want to be." I looked at her. This woman who loved my son, who had no agenda, no ulterior motives, who was just genuinely kind. I'd love that. After they left, I sat in my garden as the sun set, listening to birds, feeling the warm breeze, living in a moment that was completely, genuinely mine. I didn't hate Jackson anymore. I didn't think about him at all, really. He was serving his time in a Nevada prison, and that was where he belonged. Sienna was in a facility in California. Rosalind had died 4 months after the trial, her cancer finally taking her. Their story was over. Mine was just beginning. I was 63 years old. I'd spent 32 years married to a lie. 5 years mourning a ghost. And almost a year fighting to reclaim what they'd tried to take from me. But now, sitting in my garden with dirt under my fingernails and peace in my heart, I realized something important. They hadn't taken anything that mattered. They'd taken money and time and trust. But they hadn't taken me. They hadn't broken the part of me that mattered most. I was still here, still standing, still capable of joy and love and new beginnings. I'd stopped mourning a man who never deserved my tears. I'd stopped being the victim of someone else's cruelty. I'd stopped letting the past define my future. I was just Claire now, not Jackson's widow, not Sienna's mark, just Claire. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.